Diablo Roman 4 Open Beta Retrospective, transforming feedback into change. On the weekends of March 17 and 24, Sanctuary let out a cry for help, a cry that would be answered by hordes of wanderers who rode in on a nameless horse and loosened Lilith's grasp on Sanctuary. During the early access and open beta weekends, these players sent countless demons back to the burning hells, obtained powerful gear, and saw Lilith's grand plot begin to unfold before them. Many of these players also took the time to leave valuable feedback on our official Diablo Roman 4 forums and on platforms such as Reddit and Discord. After the early access and open beta weekends concluded, the development team read through all your feedback and reviewed gameplay data. Using this information, we have made a variety of fixes and updates to various systems in Diablo Roman 4, all of which will be present in the version of the game that launches on June 6. None of this would be possible without the community's dedication and love for the Diablo universe, to which we say thank you. Dungeon layouts. One of the most common pieces of feedback we received is that players felt they were doing a lot of backtracking within certain dungeons. We have optimized multiple dungeons across all zones to minimize the need for backtracking. Here is a list of dungeons specifically in the Fractured Peaks zone which received layout updates. Caldera Gate, Defiled Catacombs, Derelict Lodge, Forbidden City, Orfrost Demise, Immortal Emanation, Core Dragon Barracks, Malwyn, Rhymescore Caverns. Developers note, our primary goal with the layout changes was to reduce certain kinds of backtracking which detract from a player's experience. An example of this change is that players previously needed to enter side rooms to interact with structure objectives, causing them to retread the same path. Now, many of our structure objectives have been repositioned along main dungeon pathways, making them easier for players to reach and allowing them to readily explore the dungeon after defeating the structure. Dungeon events. The chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon has increased from 10% to 60%. Dungeon gameplay. To reduce the need to backtrack, small numbers of straggling monsters will seek out the player to help complete the Kill All Monsters objective. Gain 10 resource. Reduce all active cooldowns by 1 second. Depositing Animus channel time was reduced from 3 to 0 seconds. The time to rescue was reduced from 3 to 1.5 seconds. The time to rescue was reduced from 3 to 1.5 seconds. All rescue objectives now drop a health potion upon completion. While carrying the ancient statue, bloodstone, mechanical box, or stone carving, you will receive a momentum bonus granting a 25% move speed increase to you and nearby allies. Pedestals have had their channel time reduced from 2 to 0 seconds. Returning a portable object to its pedestal now fully restores health, resource, potions, and resets cooldowns for all nearby players. All doors will now generate a minimap ping when they are open. All structure objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanics players must overcome. Developers know, while our dungeons offer a variety of objectives to complete, player feedback stated that the action of completing each objective felt tedious. We hope that providing bonuses, such as the increase to mobility while carrying certain objective items, will streamline and vary the experience of completing objectives. This adjustment is merely a starting point, and we intend to extend this philosophy to keys in a future update. Classes. General. Effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. Review class skills to confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skills that remove control impairing effects. Many legendary powers have had updates to their effectiveness. Barbarian. A flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added for the Barbarian class. Some skill tree passives have their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. The Whirlwind skill now deals more damage and consumes more fury. The Double Swing skill enhancement refunds its full fury cost when used on stun or knockdown enemies. Druid. Companion skills will now deal heavily increased damage. All ultimate skills have had their cooldowns reduced. Usability improvements have been made to maul and pulverize. Using a non-shapeshifting skill will transform a druid back into their human form. Necromancer. Summon minions will die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses more often. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stats increased. The damage dealt by the corpse explosion skill has been reduced. The brightness of the skeletal warriors and mages has been reduced. Rogue. Upgrades for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increased. Multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased. All imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. Sorcerer. Charged bow's damage was increased and the mana cost to cast has decreased. Decreased the damage of chain lightning and reduced its effectiveness against bosses. Decreased the cooldown for the incinerate skills enchantment bonus. Fireballs will now spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enchantment bonus. Increase the lucky hit chance for the meteor skills enchantment bonus. Developers note, whenever we introduce changes to our classes, it is with the goal of making both them and their skills feel impactful and powerful. Your feedback has helped us uphold this ideal. Some players have adeptly noticed that certain skills were too powerful. One of our goals for skills is to have them be interesting to wield and interactive in terms of itemization and combat feel. We've made some changes to help in this regard, with one example being the Necromancer's minions. We've made a change that makes them more vulnerable in combat, which will make raising the dead a more active component of the Necromancer's gameplay. Launch is just the first step of our class balance journey, and you can expect further updates that iterate on this pillar of Diablo IV UI. Fixed an issue where the built-in screen reader was not reading key prompts, game options details, and other UI text. Fixed an issue where actions could not be bound to the mouse wheel. Fixed an issue where evade couldn't be bound to the right analog stick on controller. Chat will now display on the left side of the screen when using the centered action bar configuration. A character's stats will be displayed by default when players click the materials and stats button within their inventory. The move and interact inputs can now be mapped to one button, while the primary attack input is mapped to a secondary button. The sans serif font used in-game has been replaced with a new serif font. Encounters. Fix multiple issues that allow bosses, like the Butcher, to become unresponsive. The Butcher has been reevaluated for difficulty and will present a greater challenge in World Tiers Roman 3 and Roman 4. Bosses such as T-Chort, Malnak, Vihenard, and others were reevaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fight mechanics. Fixed an issue with vampire brutes using the Shadow Enchant effects with Chaincast and Pale. Cellars. Increase the chance for a dungeon event to occur in cellars. Cellars will now consistently reward a chest upon completion. Fixed an issue where cellars would prematurely be marked as complete. Fixed an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from a cellar. General quality of life. Fixed an issue where players could increase attack speed by move-canceling attacks early. Fixed an issue where characters weren't immune and untargetable after loading into an area. The Reset Dungeon button has been disabled. Developers note, while Diablo IV Sanctuary is home to over 100 dungeons, the open beta only had the subset offered in Akai's Fractured Peaks for players to explore, and a level cap that isn't a full representation of the experience at launch. There are many reasons to complete a variety of dungeons, including collecting powerful fixes in the Codex of Power, and players will still be able to repeat dungeons by partying up with others and having them start the dungeon. We also wanted to make sure that resetting the dungeon wasn't a way for hardcore players to avoid death when experiencing a challenge in a dungeon. Still, we know it can be fun to repeat a specific dungeon, and the team is looking at a more permanent solution to this, like having some reasonable cap on how many times the same dungeon can be completed in a row to better support that style of play. In fact, in the full game, players will acquire sigils that will unlock nightmare dungeons, which are specifically designed to be completed repeatedly and are optimized to be highly rewarding and replayable. We'll have more to share on this in the future. Fixed an issue that caused Gale Valley and Serek Rapture to have less monsters than intended until the campaign quests in those territories were completed. Tune into the next Diablo IV developer update livestream.